Hey, Mr. Smith here. We're going to help you fill out this Energy Dot Model Lab Part 2. And we're mainly going to be looking at this graph. So if you need to pause it on this image, you might want to do that from time to time to make sure you know what I am talking about. So this is what my graph ended up looking like. So let's take a look at a couple of things. First of all, the word latitude. Latitude is the distance north or south of the equator. So let's make sure we use that and reference the word latitude when we can today. So the first question is, what pattern do you notice in the data? And I hope you notice that, man, lots of high temperatures in the tropics and then kind of dropping off, or maybe you might actually see something like this. So as latitude increases, temperature decreases. Pause the video and write that down for number 1. That can be seen here, of course, right? The hottest temperatures are around the equator. As you go north or south, temperatures decrease. That's a big point, right? But what else do we see? Well, the biggest thing is this. You can see there's hardly any change in the equator, but when you get mid-latitude or certainly the poles, you see greater change. So the further you are away from the equator, the bigger the change you're seeing between seasons. So another way to say that is, the greater the latitude, the greater the effects of the tilt of the Earth. That would also be a good thing to write down for number 1. Pause the video and do that now, please. So number 2 is really talking about latitude and temperature. So we have that down, right? The lower the latitude, the higher the temperature. But then let's look at number 3. What do you notice about the spring and the fall data? So going back to the spring and the fall data, you should notice that your spring and fall data is pretty close. Here and here, here and here, right? And that's because, again, the world is almost exactly sideways on those 2 dates. Once on one side of the sun, once on the other side of the sun. So hopefully that makes sense. For number 4, how many seasons does a place like Michigan have? You see, we have 4 very distinct seasons here, but really the equator only has 1 season. And finally, what would you notice about, for number 5, comparing the southern hemisphere and the northern hemispheres numbers? If we were to do this with all of them, well, you should see it be exactly opposite in the southern hemisphere than the northern hemisphere, right? Because in the northern hemisphere is tilted toward the sun, the southern hemisphere is tilted away from the sun. I hope this helps you a little bit. Talk to you soon.